What kind of expectations should we have for the New York Giants 2022 draft class? That and more coming up next on the Locked On Giants podcast.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, New York Giant fans, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast family, your team every day. My name is Patricia Cheney, and it is Hump Day. We are on Wednesday, August 16th. The New York Giants just cranking right along at summer training camp. And on today's show, to prove that I do listen to you guys, that I do take suggestions from my listeners, we actually have a listener-inspired show. One of my subtext community members said to me, "Hey, Pat, why don't you do a program on the Giants class of 2022 and what the expectations are for those players in year two of their NFL careers?" And I thought to myself, that's a really good idea. So I think I'm going to do that on this show. I'm also doing an article over on Giants Country for that very same topic. So I do want to send a shout out to, I think it was Elizabeth from my subtext community group who suggested that idea. So I want to send a shout out for the idea. I appreciate it. And if you have an idea, by the way, for the show, something that you want me to talk about, discuss, or whatever, send it to me, and you don't have to be a subtext community member. You can be just, one of my everydayers. You're just as important. You could be someone who's new, just finding the podcast for the first time. Send it to me. I'm always open for new ideas, especially since I'd like to know what you guys and gals want to know, because that's what I'm here for, to bring you the content that you want. All right, so we're going to talk about expectations for year two of the class of 2022, and then I'm going to spend later on in the show talking about things that I am curious to see in the Giants' second preseason game against that's coming up this weekend. That'll be against the Carolina Panthers at MetLife Stadium. So that's today's agenda again. Happy to have you with us. Let's get into it. All right. We're going to just go down the list of 9 draft picks from the class of 2022. We're going to start off with outside linebacker Kayvon Thibodeaux. What are the expectations? What do the Giants potentially want to see from him? Very simple, folks. Thibodeaux, I don't think, is ever going to be a consistent double-digit sack artist, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. What he can be is more of a disruptor. If he can disrupt on a weekly basis, open things up for other players to make plays, and then occasionally, stepping up and making the play himself, I think the Giants will take that. And I think back to the days of O.C. Umenyiora when he was with the Giants. O.C., wasn't constantly getting sacks. He wasn't a sack machine, but when he stepped up and got sacks, you took notice of it. But O.C. also made a lot of little plays that helped others take over the game. So I think the Giants, if they can get that out of Kayvon Thibodeaux and a disruptor, I think they will happily take that. And we saw some signs of that actually starting last year, towards the end of the last year, when Thibodeaux started to get healthy from that knee injury and become more comfortable in the defense. He started to kind of disrupt and help the Giants defense take things over. And you remember that Washington game, that second Washington game where Thibodeaux just absolutely dominated that game. So the Giants can get something like that on a fairly consistent basis. They're going to have it made in the shade with Thibodeaux. Okay, the other first-round draft pick, Evan Neal, offensive tackle. Very simply, they need him to be better than he was last year. Now, I spoke about this on yesterday's show. I'll mention it again. I'm a little concerned with the time that Neal is missing. He was injured, I want to say, on August 5th. So that was about 11 days ago. He was still in the protocol as of August 15th, the Tuesday practice that the Giants had, a fully padded practice. At this rate, I would be surprised, even if he's cleared, for Wednesday's practice to return to, full contact activities. I would be very surprised if Neal actually gets in the game on Friday night against the Panthers. So I am a little concerned where things stand with him because, like I said, I didn't see a whole lot with a comfort level with him. But, look, I know the young man worked hard in the spring and up until he was injured. So maybe things will be okay. I don't know. But anytime a young player like that misses a chunk of training camp time, there's cause for concern. So fingers crossed that it's, just nothing and Neil will come back. He'll be healthy and good to go and find that comfort level. But the Giants definitely need him to be better this year than he was last year when he was a little inconsistent. Okay, moving to the second round, Wan'Dale Robinson. Right now, Robinson is still on the PUP list. I think it was last week, Joe Shane on the Zach Gelb show mentioned that he would be coming off the PUP list, probably in the next week and a half or whatever it was. Brian Dable, when he was asked about that on Monday, said that there is no timetable. And I don't know, folks, the more time that Wan'Dale sits on the inactive list, the PUP list, I don't know that he's going to fit in necessarily. I mean, because look, once you activate him off that PUP list and he can start practicing again, now you've got to kind of say, okay, do you put him on the 53-man roster or what do you do with him? And, you would say, okay, look, he's a second-round draft pick. He should be on the 53-man roster. But now you're going to move a guy that's been practicing all summer long in favor of this, somebody who hasn't. So it's kind of a sticky situation, I think. I mean, at this point, you almost would rather he sit on PUP and stay on PUP, not rush back because the Giants do have options at receiver. But then the downside is that Robinson cannot practice with the team. He can only work on the side with a trainer. And you really want to get him involved, year two of the offense, get him involved, let him start working on, getting better. So it's a catch-22. We'll see what the Giants do with him. But, yeah, that's one that's really up in the air because Robinson, he could be a big part of this offense, but got to get on the field at some point. And the longer he sits on PUP, the more likely you would think he's going to stay on PUP to start the season, where we would have to stay on PUP for 4 games. All right, moving on to the third round. Offensive lineman Joshua Ezeudu. They need for him to be on point. Now, I had said leading up to the summer that I believe the Giants wanted Joshua Ezeudu to win the left guard job. He has not done so yet. I think at this juncture, if I had a guess, that job is going to go to Ben Bredeson, who has been the best offensive lineman on this team, not named Andrew Thomas. And, no disrespect to John Michael Schmitz, who's been good, but Bredeson's, probably the second best offensive lineman on this team right now behind Andrew Thomas. Ezeudu, the issues with him, sometimes you question if he knows what he's got to do. If he knows his assignment, is he blocking the right guys? So they need consistency with him. And the problem again, and this is applicable to all the guys from the class of 2022 who dealt with injuries. The issue is you miss chunks of playing time, and that's valuable development time, experience, reps that you are missing out on. So, we'll get to this a little later when we get to, the day 3 picks, but these are guys now who are still kind of stuck between their rookie year and their second year when they should know better. So it's kind of the same situation with Joshua Ezeudu. Now, Bredeson, we know that he's been working up and down the interior of the offensive line. He's been working at left guard, center, right guard. Well, center, we know John Michael Schmitz is going to get that job, barring injury. I mean, let's not play any more games here. That's Schmitz's job to lose. Glowinski, I still believe Glowinski is going to be the starting right guard. I think, again, I've said this before, they've moved Bredeson up and down that line to get him snaps in the event of an injury that he has to step in at any of those positions. But could we see a rotation between Ezeudu and Bredeson at left guard? Possibly, but I would not be surprised again if that job is Bredeson's to lose right now. So the Giants, They need for Zulu to kind of settle in, batten down the hatches, and just kind of, lock in on what he's got to do. All right. The other player that I want to talk about in this segment, Cordell Flatt, cornerback. Flatt at the start of camp was competing for the slot cornerback's job, a role that he played at LSU when injuries struck. It seems now that the Giants have kind of moved away from that, and they're having Flatt work more on the outside. So, right now it's funny. Defensive coordinator Wink Martindale told reporters on Tuesday that the three best cornerbacks on the team right now are Deonte Banks, Trey Hawkins, and Adoree Jackson. Flatt's got to work himself into that conversation as being one of the best cornerbacks on the team, because look, at this point, you figure that Flatt is going to be the depth in the event of an injury to one of the guys on the outside. And ideally, you'd also like for him to be able to come down in the slot if you need him to. So Flatt just needs to overall be better. I mean, he hasn't been horrible this summer, don't get me wrong, but he hasn't been, maybe as far along as maybe they hoped he would be. So obviously they want him to be versatile, and they want him to step up a little bit more with the consistency and making plays. All right. I've got the back half of the Giants class of 2022 and what the expectations are. That's coming up right after this. Hey, Giant fans, did you know that 80% of men will experience hair thinning in their lifetime? It's normal, but it doesn't have to be your fate. You can get ahead of thinning hair with Neutrifold. Neutrifold is the #1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement, clinically shown to improve your hair growth, visible thickness, and visible scalp coverage. Neutrifold's hair growth supplements use physician-formulated, natural science-backed ingredients. Their drug-free, patented technology provides consistent, reliable results without compromising one's sexual health. And it works. In a clinical study, 84% of the men showed improvement in their hair after 6 months of taking Neutrifold's men's hair growth supplements. So go to Neutrifold.com/men to take their hair health wellness quiz. Identify the causes of your thinning hair, and Neutrifold will give you a personalized plan for better hair health through whole body wellness. And for a limited time, Neutrifold is offering our listeners $10 off their first month subscription and free shipping when they go to Neutrifold.com/men and enter the promo code LOCKEDONNFL. Find out why over 4,000 healthcare professionals recommend Neutrifold for healthier hair. That's spelled Neutrifold, Nutrafol, and that website is Neutrifold.com/men with the promo code LOCKEDONNFL for your special offer. All right, Giant fans, welcome back to the Locked On Giants podcast. I'm Patricia Cheney, your host, and we are doing a listener-suggested show here. Expectations for the class of 2022. Elizabeth of my subtext community, who is also, I believe, an everydayer, suggested that I do a show on what are the expectations are for the class of 2022, and that's what I'm doing, because I do listen to, again, what you guys and gals say and what you want to hear and what you want to read about. So I appreciate the suggestions, and I appreciate you, as always, for tuning in. And before I get into the second half of the Giants class of 2022, announcement time, folks. That's right. It's back. That's right. Live. Locked On Giants Live is back. It's back tonight. Traina, Tana, and Dog. We're going live at 7:30 on YouTube. We're going to talk about, summer training camp, how it's unfolded. We're going to talk about the battles, all things Giants. If you've been to Locked On Giants Live, we have a great old time. We hang around for a couple of hours talking nothing but football. We take your questions, and we just have fun. So if you're not doing anything tomorrow night, I'd say tomorrow night. I'm taping this on Tuesday. If you're not doing anything on Wednesday night around 7:30, drop on by the YouTube channel. And it's open to everybody. And we'd love to have you. The community always gathers and they have a nice little side chat in the background going on. We take your questions. So please, we hope to see you. And if you do come, hope you have a good time as always on Locked On Giants Live. And also before I continue on, just real quick, Julian Council of Locked On Panthers is going to be joining me for a special crossover show. We're going to preview the Giants and Panthers preseason game, but not so much, strategies and matchups and stuff like that, but more or less a look at each other's players and who might be a fit because, with cut down dates coming up, who knows? I mean, the Giants, when they get a firsthand look at another team's players, they might have interest in them. So it's always a good idea to know the opposition this time of year because you never know. Some of those guys might end up on your roster. So that's coming up as well. All right, let's get back to the expectations for the class of 2022. We're going to do the bottom half of the 2022 rosters. Kick it off with tight end Dane Bellinger. Dane Bellinger, now, when the Giants acquired Darren Waller, a lot of people were like, oh, what does that mean for Bellinger? Folks, all it means for Bellinger is that, he's going to be part of more 12 and 13 personnel packages. So Bellinger is going to have a big role in this offense, but it's going to be a versatile role as both a blocker and a receiver. So as long as Bellinger is versatile enough to get the job done, he's going to be just fine. And I think that's the expectation for him. We've all seen the pictures of Bellinger bulked up looking like Bane. All right. That wasn't done by accident. That was done with the intention of helping him to better withstand blocks and, hold up against the bigger boys that he has to, that he would face across the line of scrimmage. So Bellinger is going to be Mr. Versatility for the Giants on offense because he's going to be asked to block. He's going to be asked to run patterns. And I fully expect, his progression to continue because last year we saw a lot of good stuff from Bellinger, it sandwiched in between that eye injury that he had, but he's fine. He's healthy and he is primed for a big year in his second season. All right. Dane Belton, safety. The Giants, no doubt, would love him to be a ball hawk. Now, I don't have to tell you that last year interceptions were very hard to come by the Giants' defensive secondary. I think the cornerbacks just had one, and I want to say the safeties had, 4 interceptions? I think the team had, something like 6 or 7? It was a low number. The Giants are going to be looking to get more turnovers this year and interceptions. I mean, think back to last year. How many balls did they almost pick off only to have it hit their hands and fall? Too many. Now, I mentioned Belton and being a ball hawk. Belton has actually looked more like a ball hawk, probably the most like a ball hawk in this camp, right? He's had a couple of interceptions in the, Giants practices only. He picked off that pass against the Lions in the joint practices last week. The Giants would like to see more interceptions, and if Belton can give them a few of those, great. Belton right now, I think his role, the way things are shaping up with Jason Pinnock likely having won the starting safety job next to Xavier McKinney, Belton's going to be the third safety. So he's going to have a very important role. He's a big physical safety. He could come down in the box. He could be, like a pseudo linebacker for them or, a big nickel guy for them. Belton's going to have a big role, and they're expecting, like I said, solid physical play. And if they can get some ball hawking out of him, even better. All right. Micah McFadden, inside linebacker. Wink Martindale, in his presser with reporters today, spoke about McFadden and basically said that he leads the competition for ILB2, that he's fighting for that position with Darian Beavers. Not surprising there. McFadden has looked a lot more comfortable in year 2. And, not for nothing, but McFadden is the only member of this draft class, this 2022 class, that didn't miss time last year due to injury. So that has benefited him. And Martindale basically, laid it out. He said, look, Beavers is like a rookie all over again because he missed his entire rookie season. So McFadden has the edge. Now, the other thing about McFadden, where I think he has an edge over Beavers, is that McFadden can blitz. All right. And he's been successful with blitzing in his college career when asked to do it. Last year, I believe McFadden had, I want to say a 9 point something. I can't remember if it was 9.2 or 9.8 pass rush productivity score, which wasn't too bad given that he had a limited number of pass rushes. So I think the Giants may look to use him as a pass rusher, as a blitzer. McFadden has also shown good instincts and the ability to diagnose plays and blow them up. He had a tackle or an assisted tackle against the Lions in which they stopped the runner for 2 yards. Anytime you can get, a guy stopped within like the first 2 or 3 yards of the line of scrimmage, that counts as a stop. And it's a bit, it counts as a significant play. So McFadden has done that. And we've also seen him do that, blow things up in the backfield or not let running backs get too far, into the second level. We've seen that from him in the practices thus far in training camp. So really no surprise, I don't think, that, when you think about it, that McFadden's a little bit more ahead than Beavers at this point. And, I'm speaking about Beavers. So even though I'm going out of order because up next would be DJ Davidson, I might as well talk about Beavers. Actually, both Beavers and DJ Davidson, I guess you could say the same thing for them. So I might as well just cover them both. They both need to be students of the game. Now, both of them, like I said, they suffered season-ending injuries. Davidson, I think, in week 5 of the season, Beavers in the preseason. So their rookie years were basically robbed from them. They need to basically be students of the game. Now, Davidson was just activated off of PUP this week. I don't see him making the roster, not with all the veteran defensive linemen that they added. I do think Davidson may have a spot on the practice squad where he can come up to speed at the NFL game and just really be a student of the game and work on technique and all that stuff. Beavers, I do think, will make the roster. I think there will be situations where he may, I don't want to say alternate with McFadden if McFadden wins that ILB2 job, but there will be roles for Beavers to play. And then, of course, there's also special teams, which the Giants need help with. So Beavers, just if he doesn't win that ILB2 job, it's not the end of the world, because he's more of a thumper, a downhill runner. So, against those run-heavy teams that the Giants might be facing this year, that's where you might see him play a little bit more than maybe McFadden, who isn't quite as physical. But I think, you're going to see the two of them playing at that ILB2 spot, but McFadden will probably get a little bit more action given that he can do a little bit more in terms of the coverage, in terms of blitzing. So that's the complete list of the Giants class of 2022. Now, coming up next, things that I know I want to see in the Giants preseason week 2 game against the Carolina Panthers. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. All right, Giant fans, welcome back to the Locked On Giants podcast. I'm your host, Patricia Cheney, and I'm very appreciative that you are spending a few minutes with us here on the Locked On Giants podcast. And in this segment, we're going to talk about what the Giants need to show in preseason game number 2 against the Carolina Panthers. So this is really my list. And, whether this coincides with what the Giants coaches want to see or, that I don't know, but I'm just going to give you a few things on my list that I want to see. And I'm going to start off with this combination at cornerback of Banks, Hawkins, and Jackson. Now, on yesterday's show, I expressed some hesitation about that combination. Would the Giants actually contemplate starting 2 rookie cornerbacks on the outside and moving Adoree Jackson down into the slot and just using that alignment on a consistent basis? I still question whether they will do that. But, Wink Martindale today, speaking to the media, said, look, those 3 are my best cornerbacks right now. And it's all about putting the best guys on the field. And the more we see of this group in practices, the more they get a chance to work together, maybe the little less apprehensive I'll feel personally. So I think, and Brian Daboll hasn't said what the plans are for personnel on Friday, but I would be surprised if we do not see any of the starters. I think if we do see the starters, maybe they play a couple of series, maybe a quarter here and there, depending on who they are. But I know I would be curious to see what, this Banks, Hawkins, Jackson trio looks like. So, look, I'm keeping an open mind because Wink obviously knows a lot more and a lot better than I do. We'll see how it works out because, as many of you pointed out to me yesterday, you said, well, Pat, you're worried about 2 rookie corners on the outside against Dallas, and they put CD Lamb, their best receiver, in the slot, and, wouldn't you want Adoree Jackson covering him? Yes, I get that. I understand that, folks. I just, it's something new. And while I'm not adverse to trying something new, I got to see it and see enough of it before I say to myself, okay, I can live with it. It's just the conservative nature of me. So it might work out fine. And if it does, great. I'll be the first to admit that I worried over nothing. So we'll see how that works out. All right. What else do I want to see in Friday night's game? I want to see the new toys that Daniel Jones has to play with. Darren Waller, Jalen Hyatt, Paris Campbell, Saquon Barkley as more than just a check down receiver. I want to see some of that stuff. Now, I doubt the Giants are going to go crazy because, they do keep things very vanilla. But wouldn't it be nice if you can try some of these new looks against live competition, in a game situation? So I don't know, how much they would plan to show if they even play these guys at all. But we've seen, like, for example, in the Detroit Lion practice, there was a clip where Darren Waller went up the middle and a bunch of Lion defenders surrounded him. And that opened things up for the guys on the outside. So I'd like to see that in a game if that holds up. I'd like to see, we've seen some really cool formations with Saquon Barkley lined up in the slot or lined up out wide and running receiver type of routes as opposed to, more of the running back routes. I want to see some of that if at all possible. I want to see, what are they going to do with Jalen Hyatt? How are they going to get him open deep against the opposition? How is Paris Campbell going to fit in? We've seen Paris Campbell work out of the backfield sometimes. He's worked in the slot. Where does, Cole Beasley fit in if he plays? Is Sterling Shepard going to be ready to play? Which I don't think he will be, but how does that fit in? Sterling Shepard, another guy they have moved around the formation. So I don't know how much the Giants, if they play these guys, how much they'll actually show. But there have been some interesting, looks on offense. And to watch Daniel Jones operate, Daniel Jones, I've made this observation before. He has looked so confident. He is practicing with a swagger almost. And what a difference for him. You could see the comfort level. So I want to see more of that. And, again, they're not going to game plan or anything like that. They got to keep some stuff on the reps against the Cowboys. But if we could just have a little glimpse, I know I would be happy if I could see some of that, in a game situation. All right. One last thing I'll give you. Please, better special teams coverage. All right. Look, Thomas McGahee came to, spoke to the media today, as did all the other coordinators. And he was asked about that. And right off the bat, McGahee addressed the quote-unquote 600-pound gorilla in the room, which was the icy stare he got from Brian Daboll after that punt return for a touchdown that they gave up against the Lions. But then somebody followed up wisely, saying, well, why'd you have only 10 guys on the field? And then I think another question came up about Jamie Gillen outkicking the coverage. Folks, these problems have been going on going back to last year, maybe even the year before you can make the argument. But we'll say last year, since this is the same regime here. At what point are these problems going to get cleaned up? Now it's interesting because the Giants were awarded linebacker Ray Wilburn off of waivers. He had been waived by Denver. Special teams guy. All right. You don't think that Joe Shane and Brian Daboll look at what they've got and say, hey, we need some reinforcement here on special teams. So, part of it, obviously, you could point to the talent. On that punt return, there were 2 missed tackles. But like I said, Gillen didn't help himself by outkicking his coverage. And McGahee explained, what they're looking for in terms of hang time equaling distance. So they just, it's been an ongoing problem for the Giants going back to last year with this current coaching staff. And look, at some point, special teams has got to stop being a liability and start being an asset, especially on the coverage units. So why not start that this week and play a cleaner game, a crisper game? Yeah, I know it's preseason. The games don't count. Who cares? I care. And I think a lot of other people care because you don't want this carrying over into the regular season. You don't want the special teams having a fouled up play, which ends up costing them a game. So get all that out of the system now and start playing a little crisper across the board. So those are some of the things I want to see, and we'll see what else pops up. So folks, make sure you keep it here on the Locked On Giants podcast. Again, Wednesday night, 7:30, Locked On Giants Live with Trainer, Tana, and Dog. We'll do a show Thursday with Julian Council of Locked On Panthers, in which she's going to tell us about some of his team's players that might be on the bubble that maybe might interest the Giants, and vice versa. Friday's the game, so I will probably have the post-game analysis for you on Saturday, since it's a home game and I'll be there. And by the time I get everything all set up and everything, it's going to be Saturday anyway. So that's the plan for the podcast the rest of the week. I want to thank you, as always, for tuning in. We will see you again tomorrow, Giant fans.